Rob Manfred just dropped a bombshell that could completely reshape baseball as we know it. And I'm not talking about pitch clocks, robot umpires, automated check swing reviews, or bigger bases. I'm talking about a shift that could put the Yankees, Mets, and Phillies in the same division, create rivalries we never imagined, and fundamentally change how baseball operates. Commissioner Rob Manfred casually mentioned that MLB expansion could trigger a complete geographical realignment of divisions. And this isn't just some commissioner fantasy. The dominoes are already falling, and what Manfred revealed could happen sooner than anyone imagined. Picture this scene. Sunday night, August 18, 2025. The Seattle Mariners are facing the New York Mets in Williamsport, Pennsylvania for the Little League Classic, when suddenly from the broadcast booth, Rob Manfred drops this absolute bomb. But before we dive into this potential chaos, let's talk about just how absolutely insane the current geographical setup really is. That's like flying from New York to LA and back again, just in extra travel compared to their closest competitor. And it gets even weirder when you think about how the current divisions are set up, but are in a division with 3 teams from California. The closest Californian ballpark to Coors Field is Oracle Park, which is still over 12,000 miles away in Washington, while completely ignoring their natural homestay rivals in Tampa Bay, who also play in the AL East for some reason. The Texas Rangers and Houston Astros, 2 teams literally in the same state, didn't even play in the same league until Houston moved to the AL in 2013. But this is something I never really thought about until diving into this story. Some of these seemingly bizarre arrangements actually might have been intentional. Just think about it. Keeping the Yankees and Mets in different leagues, the Cubs and White Sox separated, the Dodgers and Angels apart. Maybe MLB was deliberately preserving the possibility of same-city World Series matchups, while also giving a rare and more special feel to when these same-city teams did actually play each other once in a blue moon. The potential for a freeway series between the Dodgers and Angels, a crosstown showdown between the Cubs and White Sox. Maybe the current system isn't as crazy as it seems. Maybe it's designed to create maximum drama when it matters most. You could have a Northeast division with the Yankees, Mets, Phillies, and Red Sox. Think about that. You could have the Yankees and Mets playing 18 to 20 times a year, Aaron Judge versus Juan Soto head-to-head electric matchups in a legitimate division race. The intensity of Yankees-Red Sox multiplied by also having to battle through the Mets and the Phillies now for a division title. This could create a scenario where only 2 to 3 of these teams make the postseason each year, rather than the current setup where more might squeeze in. 4 teams that absolutely despise losing, all crammed into one division. Can you imagine like the intensity at Citi Field when the Yankees come to town, not for an occasional interleague series, but for crucial September division showdowns, or the atmosphere at Citizens Bank Park when the Mets or Yankees are both chasing the Phillies for the same division crown? Now, that's the type of matchups that are just the beginning for this new realignment. Rob Manfred specifically mentioned reducing wear and tear on our players in terms of travel. This isn't just about convenience, it's about competitive fairness. The Mariners are flying cross-country constantly, while teams like the Yankees take a short 1-hour flight to Baltimore and Boston. That's a real competitive disadvantage. Imagine the Cubs and White Sox playing for the same division title. And I know, it's impossible because the White Sox absolutely stink. But just imagine the electricity that this rivalry amplified by legitimate postseason stake. Now, besides for these natural rivalries, you would have a much better regional interest with more centralized divisions. For example, a Southeast division with Atlanta, Miami, Charlotte, O'Reilly, North Carolina, and Tampa Bay would create incredible regional storylines that local sports media would go absolutely crazy covering these division races between neighboring markets. Recent reporting suggests MLB would expand to 32 teams by the early 2030s, and a few cities are emerging as clear front runners. For example, Salt Lake City and Portland are both fascinating candidates for Western expansion. And ESPN insider Jeff Passan recently said that Salt Lake City has really impressed the people at Major League Baseball. Both cities would give Seattle natural regional rivals and help solve their brutal travel schedule. Now, Portland has been consistently mentioned as a top expansion candidate because you could have Portland or Salt Lake City with Seattle Mariners, San Francisco Giants, and the Las Vegas A's, assuming that they do complete their move. Suddenly, you now have 4 teams in a tight geographical cluster that would create incredible regional rivalries while dramatically reducing travel costs for everyone involved. North Carolina is a really good candidate for expansion as well, because Charlotte led all of minor league baseball in attendance from 2014 to 2018 and has the largest TV market among expansion candidates at 2.7 million people, which means more corporate sponsorship opportunities that would make other markets jealous. But there is a bit of a plot twist, because Charlotte might be losing ground to really North Carolina, as the governor Roy Cooper has voiced his support for bringing Major League Baseball there. A motivated billionaire owner in Tom Dundon, who owns NHL's Carolina Hurricanes. Here's where things get really strategic, and it just shows how much thought Manfred has put into this. He specifically mentioned that geographical realignment would make our postseason format even more appealing for entities like ESPN, because you'd be playing out of the East and out of the West. Instead of having American League and National League teams scattered randomly across the country, you'd concentrate all the NL teams into one region, say the eastern half of the country, and all the AL teams into the western half of the country. But more importantly for fans and broadcasters, this means way more games are happening in convenient time zones. East Coast fans no longer have to wait up until midnight to watch their league games on the West Coast, and West Coast fans wouldn't miss early games due to work that are being played on the East Coast. This is all part of a bigger plan by Rob Manfred, and that the reason MLB wants to become more like the NBA is just strictly for marketing reasons. More specifically, in order to sell their broadcasting deals more easily, and to that extent they literally just sold all of their out-of-market games plus in-market games for the Guardians, Twins, Padres, Rockies, and Diamondbacks to ESPN for the next 3 years. Now, this is a new deal that MLB and ESPN made, and the breakup over Sunday Night Baseball and other broadcasts will still end after this year, by the time his contract is up in 2029. And if I had to guess, Manfred has a plan to guarantee this happen. Well, what if Manfred caves in and says, okay, no salary cap to Major League Baseball Players Association, but just in order to guarantee the approval of expansion by the end of the decade? Manfred has made it clear he clearly wants to expand by any means necessary. And guess what? Despite caving in over a salary cap to MLBPA, this would actually still benefit MLB owners. And after creating a team, they'll sign broadcasting contracts and pay them to the revenue sharing program. And over time, other MLB teams will just be making more money because of their new expansion. Why it's probably inevitable that these changes do happen. It's about money. Expansion fees for new MLB franchises are going to be absolutely insane. We're talking potentially $2 to $3 billion per team, which means current owners would split $4 to $6 billion just in expansion fees. Geographical realignment could reduce travel costs for every single team dramatically across the league, increase the regional TV revenues that each team makes. It could boost attendance because now fans can travel 2 to 3 hours more often to see a rival that is more local for them, and attract new corporate sponsors who want to reach a specific regional market and not market to a team knowing that they're going to play half their games across the country. It makes sense what Manfred said about appealing to broadcasters like ESPN being absolutely crucial. Current broadcast deals are worth billions, and geographical realignment could make those deals even more valuable. All National League games concentrated in Eastern time zones, perfectly timed for East Coast audiences. No more East Coast fans staying up until 1 a.m. to watch their league's West Coast games. ESPN could show NL games during Eastern primetime and then switch to an AL game during Western primetime. MLB has been working to eliminate these blackouts and increase reach, and this realignment and concentration would make regional streaming packages much more logical for streamers and more fan-friendly. Now let's go over real quick a couple of examples of how this could impact specific franchises. As I mentioned before, the New York Yankees could find themselves in the most competitive division in baseball history, facing the Mets, Phillies, and Red Sox over 50 times a year when they're constantly facing each other throughout the year. The Tampa Bay Rays may luck out the most out of everyone because they finally get to escape the AL East nightmare that they find themselves in and land into a more balanced Southeast division with Miami and Atlanta and maybe an expansion team, potentially joining a Pacific Northwest division with Portland or Salt Lake City, the A's and the Giants. And the St. Louis Cardinals, like a lot of other teams, could lose their historic rivalries, for them being the Cubs, but gain new regional battles with maybe either Kansas City or potentially a North Carolina team. Rob Manfred didn't accidentally mention geographical realignment during a casual broadcast and prepare fans for the inevitable changes. Multiple sources suggest expansion is closer than ever, with Nashville, North Carolina, Portland, Salt Lake City, and even Montreal and Mexico City emerging as candidates. The competitive benefits are also too obvious to dismiss, even if they do risk upsetting an entire fan base of people. Despite all of the positive things I've listed so far, people aren't going to be too happy about these proposed divisional realignment. A potential once-in-a-lifetime World Series matchups like Mets vs. Yankees, Cubs vs. White Sox, and Angels vs. Dodgers would be destroyed. But at this point, we're really not talking about if this is going to happen anymore. Now it's more so just when it's going to happen and how dramatically are things going to change. Now, I understand that traditionalists will fight this every step of the way, and honestly, I understand their concerns. Baseball's geographical diversity is precious, and concentrating leagues in specific regions would eliminate something special about baseball and the rich history of some existing rivalries. But while I do understand those concerns, I have to disagree. And maybe that's just because I'm young, but I actually really like this idea. I think it makes a lot of sense for the travel aspect, for regional rivalries, but also for my fan experiences. But what do you guys think? Are you guys excited about the possibility of all these realignments and expansion? Or do you want to see baseball preserve its traditional structure and way of doing things? Do you guys think this is going to ruin baseball in any way? Or do you think it helps take it to the next level and helps it grow in popularity? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. That's all for today, and I'll see you guys on the next one.